Hello and welcome to Dingoes Ate My Podcast. This week we're discussing episode 2 of season 2 of Angel. Are you now or have you ever been? I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.
All right, Dave. So this episode originally aired October 3rd, 2000, attracting approximately 5.04 million viewers. Now, before we get started, do you know what the title of the episode is a reference to?
Hmm. It's a typical sort of title. Um, it does relate to something, but I can't specifically remember the name to it.
Okay.
Or if I have it confused with something else that used it and it was more modern.
I'm sure a lot of places have referenced it. It's a reference to in the 1950s in the States, there was a senator called Joseph McCarthy who was very much, how do I put this without it sounding biased? He was very concerned about rooting out communism in the U.S. at
Mm.
the time, and basically everybody who didn't think like him was a communist. And one of the questions that he would routinely ask was, "Are you now or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?"
Hmm.
Little history lesson for you. Now let's move on to something more fun.
Yes.
Number one movie at the box office this weekend. Any ideas? October of 2000.
Hmm.
It's a
Coming in.
movie. You might have seen it. You might have skipped it. I'm not entirely. I wouldn't put money on either way.
Nothing's immediately coming to mind. Whether or not it was kind of Halloween based with the time period, but.
No, it's actually not. But it is kind of seasonally relevant. It's a movie called Remember the Titans. Don't know if you're familiar with it.
Mm,
It's a
not
football movie.
specifically. No, nothing specifically coming to mind.
Yeah,
Either
okay.
that or I'm getting confused with something else.
Yeah, it's a football movie that takes place in like I want to say like the 70s maybe, like early 70s. Anyway, not terribly
Hmm.
important. Okay, so for video games at the time, we only have one notable release to talk about this week, unfortunately. Um, but it's something. Okay, so on the Dreamcast, on okay, technically it's a Japan release, but we're going to use it anyway.
Hmm.
October 5th, there was a little game released on the Dreamcast called Skies of Arcadia.
Oh. Oh.
This might be somewhat of a game for you, I take it.
Uh, it's one of those particular games that it's old fashioned style and has an interesting enough concept.
Yeah,
And they brought it over to the GameCube for a time. And I remember seeing and hearing about it, but just with how things were at the time, just never bothered to pick up the game. And now it's one of the most ridiculously hard to find or stupidly expensive games to ever find.
I see.
And no one's bothered to do anything to re release it! Aside from the particular methods which are technically not legal.
Yeah, well, technically. Anyway, number one song in America at the time.
And around that time, again from the last week, with what was playing. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's still stuck in with music from Madonna.
You would be correct.
Hmm.
Alrighty. So, this episode. Okay. We start off with Angel asking Wesley and Cordelia to look into the mysterious history of the abandoned Hyperion Hotel. A photograph of the hotel blends into an action shot of the hotel exterior in the 1950s, which looks really cool, and I'm already totally in on this episode. As the manager sends the bellhop upstairs to give the guest in 217 his weekly bill. The bellhop nervously uh, suggests that they give him an eviction notice rather than a bill, but makes his delivery and runs down the hallway. As Angel, the feared occupant of 217, opens the door.
More Angel Pass story.
Oh, and it's a good one. As the House Un-American Activities Committee, which was the thing headed by Joseph McCarthy, hearings blare on the TV, Angel strolls through the lobby and the manager turns away an African American family, telling them that, despite what their sign says, the hotel has no vacancies. Sure
You
it doesn't.
know, as you kind of do in the 50s.
Apparently it did. On the second floor, heading towards his room, he observes a man banging on a door. In the background, two men share uh, what could be interpreted as a romantic moment outside of the room door, but it's 1950s, so they have to be very reserved.
Yeah, yeah.
Back in his room, Angel finds a woman pretending to be a maid. When Angel calls her bluff, she tells him that she's hiding from her boyfriend, the man seen earlier banging on a door. Angel helps her hide from him, smashing the door in his face when the man pulls a gun on him. It was
It's
pretty
like,
good.
good sir, I'm not scared of a gun.
In the present, Angel visits the now abandoned Hyperion. While doing research with Wesley, Cordelia discovers that the property is a historical landmark, but has been plagued by strange events since it was built. Cordelia then spots Angel in a 1952 photograph of the hotel lobby, and Wesley realizes that Angel has a personal connection to the Hyperion, and Cordelia realizes that vampires can photograph; they just don't photograph well.
Badooch.
All right. We go back to 1952 when the salesman in the room next to Angel's listens to a record, talks to someone unseen, then holds a gun to his head. Angel hears the gunshot, and the record skipping, and drinks his glass of chilled blood without reacting. When the manager and bellhop discover the salesman's suicide, the manager hears a demonic voice whispering, "They'll shut you down," and instructs the bellhop not to call the police. They then hide the body in a meat locker. That night, the guests gather at the Griffith Observatory, where they discuss the suicide and wonder why the police haven't been notified. Judy, the lady who he helped earlier, tries to thank Angel, but he is unreceptive. The next day, the guests continue to discuss the salesman, questioning if he might have been murdered. Upstairs, when Angel comments on Judy's agitation, she confesses that the man banging on her door was a PI sent by the bank from which she stole money. She was fired from the bank when they find out that although she passes as white, she's actually part African American. Her fiance also left her when he found out. Angry at the bank, she stole the money but has not spent any of it, and she regrets the decision to steal. Angel replies that fear makes people do stupid things, then clarifies that he was referring to her employers. As Angel stashes Judy's bag of money in the basement, he hears whispering and realizes something in the hotel is making people paranoid. We go back to the present where we see Cordelia and Wesley finding newspaper reports on the bellhop's execution for the salesman's murder, and an article about Judy with the headline "Search called off, fugitive woman believed dead." We go back to down in the basement. Angel finds a bag of money and once again hears the whispering. He contacts the others, announcing the hotel has a Thessalok demon that whispers to its victims and feeds off their insecurities. He said he already knows the ritual to make it corporeal so that it can be killed. We go back to 1952 again. Angel returns from a bookstore where he has learned the ritual to corporealize the demon. Meanwhile, the PI reveals Judy's secret. When the guests turn on her, she points them towards Angel, announcing that he has blood in his room. Everyone attacks Angel except Judy, who starts to cry. Angel is dragged into the hallway, and a noose is tied to the rafter, and he's pushed over the railing. The crowd cheers and slowly wonders what they've done, except for the bellhop, who seems right into it. When everyone leaves,
Yeah, he doesn't really kind of snap out of it until everyone's kind of gone. It's like, oh, oh,
yes,
yeah,
uh,
good.
when everyone leaves, Angel frees himself and drops to the lobby floor. On the stairs, the Thessalok demon becomes corporeal, gloating about the paranoia he just fed on. Judy's despair is particularly delicious, as she had come to start to have faith in humanity once again due to Angel's friendship and help. Her pain at what she has done to Angel has made her a meal that will last a lifetime, the demon says. There is an entire hotel here just full of tortured souls that could use your help. Angel replies, "Take them all," abandoning Judy and the rest of the residents to their fate. Finally, back in the present, Cordelia, Wesley, and Gunn arrive at the Hyperion. After performing the spell to make the Thessaloc corporeal, Angel electrocutes it with the exposed wires of a fuse box. Angel heads upstairs and finds Judy, now old, still in her room, where she has served as the demon's room service since 1952. She says the voices are gone and asks Angel if it is safe to go out. He tells her it is, but she is so tired that she needs to rest first. She then tells Angel that she is sorry she got him killed and asks for his forgiveness. He assures her that she did not kill him and tells her that he forgives her. She then passes away. Angel returns downstairs and announces that they're moving in. Wesley reminds Angel that evil things have happened in the hotel, but Angel tells him that it is all part of the past. Alrighty. So what do you think of this episode?
This one was definitely a really interesting episode with doing the idea of bouncing back and forth between Angel's past and the present. And at the start of the episode, it was fairly interesting of the case of Angel giving these little bits of clues to Wesley and Cordelia, then heads off to do his own sort of investigation, and then sort of piecing it together, getting the bits of the story that we see enacted by the flashbacks and whatnot going along. It was a little sad that they couldn't exactly assist until the ritual came into play, but at the very least, Angel had some assistance working with what he had done. It was also interesting that it was another one of those particular cases of Angel's past of he's dealt with this sort of stuff before and had inkling of assisting people just with how he was at that time, but just with how things were going and his thought process at the time that he didn't help or do anything of that sort. But with this episode coming from the last episode, thinking more so of this isn't um, some little thing to do to make me be a human. This is kind of a job to assist people and get them out of the bad situations with demons and other sorts of stuff like that. That after that episode, this was the next one of something he worked with but didn't exactly resolve from his past.
Yeah, it's a good kind of continuation from the previous episode where we've kind of seen like the previous episode we saw Angel like really go out of his way to save someone, and here he's kind of like, I don't want to be fucking bothered. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of juxtaposition there. Yeah, I quite like this episode. It's quite good. It's
And
quite
additionally, they got a new headquarters to work with.
Yes, and it looks so friggin' cool. I love the design of the Hyperion Hotel. I'm so glad that this is. I'm gonna spoil something for you, Dave. This is gonna be around for a while, and I love it.
It's fairly neat. Again, it's fairly striking with the stairway entrance with the stone pillars and whatnot that they typically have. Give it the sort of basic look like as soon as you sort of enter, it's like, oh, we're here now.
And like the lobby, like with like just the way it looks, I'm just like, oh, it looks fucking stunning.
Mm-hmm.
Like just the like very like late 20s kind of aesthetic. I just love how that looks. Looks so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Alrighty. So, for international titles on this episode, unfortunately, I only have two, but they're kind of, there's a good one. So, in German, it is the Hotel Hyperion, which, not great. However, in French, I actually kind of like this one, the Hotel of Evil.
Yeah, pretty much works fairly well. Kind of a case of whether or not you sort of introduce this episode to someone without, well, hitting it on the nose and just sort of being silly about it, just being like, oh, this episode, the Hotel of Evil.
I'm also going to point out that if you like film noir, there are so many references in this to like Hitchcock movies and stuff that I don't have time to go through all of them, but there's a lot.
Surprised there were particular instances of watching through the episode with the stuff that they've built up within the story and the stuff that they worked with that I don't exactly know a lot about Hitchcock with its style, the couple stories that he's done, maybe the one or two little bits I know of, but there were little hints of this is kind of following the basis of a typical 50s style and mystery story with those sort of look that was in there.
Yeah, so a few things. They reference Psycho, where Angel says 68 rooms, 68 vacancies. Also, Judy in this episode stole money from a bank and regrets it, which is part of a big part of Psycho is somebody stealing money and regretting it.
Hmm.
Um, there's also a reference to Vertigo in that the character here is obviously named Judy. The main character in that is also named Judy, and I think they came from the same town, maybe.
Mm.
Also, the other major reference here, well, one of the other major references, because again, I'm not going to go through all of them, is for a movie. I don't know if you'd be familiar with it, but it's not a Hitchcock movie, but it's called Rebel Without a Cause,
Okay.
where you see Angel wearing like the red jacket and everything. That's very much the kind of outfit um, that James Dean wore in that movie.
Okay. I think the one particular thing that spoke loudest within my head, I believe it was during that scene with the gentleman in the room that shot himself from the voices,
Hmm.
was again relating to the Hitchcock and whatnot and Psycho, that Angel was pouring himself a glass of the blood and whatnot that was there, and the fact of its consistency coming out and all that. And in most cases, it's usually chocolate sauce in those sorts of cases. So whether or not that actually is the kind of stuff that they used on set for that sort of stuff, or what sort of stuff they use for it now, it's the one thing that sort of came up. It's like, oh, Hitchcock movie.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that, but that's an interesting take. Yeah. Yeah, I quite enjoyed this episode. It was a lot of fun, and it's a personal favorite of mine, not just because of the Hyperion Hotel. I promise. Like it's actually just a really good episode. And
I
most
wouldn't be surprised. With one particular thing, especially, was with the demon that they were facing. Name escapes me with
it's
um,
a Thessalok demon.
Thessalok demon. Thank you.
Yeah.
But his personality when he became corporeal and first met with Angel, just the fact of, oh man, all the stuff I've done to these people is hilarious, and just sort of chatting with Angel, but he doesn't specifically care, especially with him being hanged and just all the stuff that's kind of happened to him. It's just kind of the case of, well, can't live here anymore. I'm out.
Yeah, yeah. It's a really good episode, and a lot of people who worked on the show regularly would cite it as one of their favorites. So, which, fair enough. It's really good. Alrighty.
Mhm.
Now, if you have nothing else about this episode, next week we're going to be discussing an episode called First Impressions. We're going to have Cordelia having a vision in which Gunn is fighting for his life, with Angel spending large amounts of time asleep thanks to Darla's influence. Cordelia can't
Oh,
wakes him up and ends up having to help Gunn herself.
mm.
Yes, and basically Gunn and Cordelia are going to have to team up to take down a demon.
Okay. Gunn probably wouldn't be too bad with what he's dealt with. Cordelia, there's been a couple things from the past couple of episodes, but there's only so much experience that Cordelia has had with demon fighting.
Well, and I mean, Gunn's only really fought vampires. He doesn't really know anything about demons.
Hmm, true, true.
Vampires are easy. Stake them and you're done. Or cut off the head. Or light them on fire. Or throw them in sunlight. They have a fair
Yeah.
few weaknesses.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's gonna be a good time. Alrighty. So until next time, I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.